We left off last video implementing the pagination of our network call to pull in the next 100 followers. But as you saw in this demo, we have a loading screen in this demo. We don't have that implemented in our app yet. So we're going to implement that little loading screen right now. And to do this, all we're going to do is put up a UI view that is the system background color, so white in light mode, black in dark mode, and we're going to give it like 80-something% opacity roughly, so you can barely see through it, right? We didn't want to just put up a big blank white screen with a spinner. That looks weird. But at the same time, if you just put the spinner with no kind of transparency background, like you can't even see the spinner. So this is why we settled on kind of the, it's almost like dimming out the collection view to put up the spinner and then moving forward once it's done. So again, how we're doing that is just we're putting up a UI view and then an activity indicator in the middle of that UI view, and that's it. So how are we going to call this, right? There's a couple different ways you can do it. Similar to our reusable alert, you could make it its own view controller. However, I decided not to go that route. And that's because if you did that, you would have to set up a communication, whether that's delegates or notifications observers, some way for this loader view controller to communicate with our follower list VC, right? Because here on like line 56, you would have to tell it here on line in between, before we make the network call, you would have to show it, but then you would also have to pass a message back to dismiss the view controller once our network call was completed. So rather than set up a communication path between those two view controllers, I decided to do it in an extension on UI view controller. This way, all my view controllers can easily pop up a loading screen. For example, we're going to have a function, show loading screen and dismiss loading screen, and every view controller is going to have that. On that note, in a future video, right, because maybe we don't want every view controller to have a loading screen, right? Like not every screen in our app is going to have the capability to pull in data. So I think in a future video, let me back up even further. Later in the course, we're going to do like an optimization type video, because when you're turning in or when you're just building a take-home project, here's the path I take at least, and here's what I recommend for you is I build it, I get it working, I get all the functionality up and running, cool, but I'm not done. That's like halfway. Then I go back in and start, going through each file. Okay, what can I refactor? What can I optimize? What can I make better, right? But I don't do that until I get the functionality working. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to do where, we're going to get it working, but we're going to go back later and then optimize it. In programming, there's this concept of premature optimization, and that can get you in trouble. And basically what that means is it means that you're trying to write this perfectly clean, refactored, compartmentalized code like too soon, right? You're worried about that before you have your functionality working. So that's premature optimization, or at least one version of it. So anyway, I just want to give you a little sneak peek of what's coming like towards the end of the course. We're going to come back and just review the overall project and start optimizing, refactoring, making things better. And why I bring that up is because for now, like I said, we're going to do this in an extension of a UI view controller. Probably the proper way to do this would be to create a subclass of UI view controller called something like data loading view controller. We can figure out the name later, but that way any view controller that loads data via network call, however, that will have the capability to show a loading screen. And then there's also like an empty state view that we're going to do in the next video. So those data loading view controllers will have the empty states, the loading screens, but not all of our view controllers, right? Whereas right now in the extension, every single one of our view controllers is going to be able to do this, which again, may not be a bad thing, but in a larger project, this extension on UI view controller may get pretty big. So you might want to refactor this out. And again, we're going to tackle that in a later video, but for now, we're going to put it in this extension on the UI view controller. So if we scroll down, let's create our new function called func show loading view. And the first thing we need is the container view, right? This is the background view that's going to hold our activity indicator. Now, the interesting thing about extensions, and this is why, subclassing into another view controller might be the better idea, is that you can't create variables in an extension, right? So let me do var container view, and there's a UI view that we unwrap. You'll see I'm going to get an error here. It's going to say extensions, extensions must not contain stored properties. So for right now, we're going to make this global, bear with me, but we're going to make it file private. This is kind of an introduction into like these keywords too. So remember, private was within the scope of the class, right? We've been using that on our GF button, etc. File private means anything in this file can use this variable. So we're going to do file private var container view, which is going to be of type UI view. Implicitly unwrap that because you'll see why. But yeah, like sure, this is a global variable, but nothing has, and the reason it's global is because, right, like it's not defined within something, right? It's just kind of floating out in no man's land. But it's file private, so that means nothing can access it unless it's in this file. And the only thing in this file is going to be the UI view controller. And again, in a later video, we're going to refactor this out, but we're doing this for now. So backing up too, just to clear things up, I do a lot of things like for educational purposes, kind of maybe take a certain path just to show different ways, kind of like how I showed, you know, here's how you do network calls without the result type. Now here's how you do network calls with the result type. So I may kind of like meander and wander down the path, but that's for educational purposes. I want to show different ways of doing things. But again, we're going to come back in a later video, optimize it, so that way at the end, you're going to have an optimal project. The first thing we want to do in this loading view is to initialize that container view. So container view equals, and it's just a UI view, and the frame we're going to give it is view.bounds. So again, that's just it's going to fill up the whole screen. We don't have to like set constraints on it. And then we need to add it to the subview. So view.add subview, not add it to the subview, add the subview to the view. I told you, I always flip that around. And we want to add container view. So now we have the container view in the view controller's view, and it's going to take up the whole screen. So let's configure this a bit. We want to give it the background color of the system background. So container view.background color equals .system. This whole system thing, system background, right? So that's going to be, again, white and light mode, black and dark mode. Now we want to set the alpha to 0 to start, and I'll tell you why. So container view.alpha equals 0. Alpha, by the way, is the transparency. So the view is going to be there. You just can't see it. It's completely clear. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to animate that to the 0.8%. And again, it's because we don't want, when the loading screen pops up, we want like a subtle animation fade in that's real quick. We don't want it to just flash on the screen. That's kind of jarring. We want it to slowly animate in, as you see here that I'm displaying. So in order to do that, we have to start off at an alpha of 0 and then animate it to 0.8 right when it pops on the screen. So for that, let's use our animation block, UI view.animate with duration 0.25. That's just, again, something I dialed in. You can tweak that if you like. And then the animation is going to be container view.alpha equals 0.8. Now that we have the container view animating on screen, we need to add our activity indicator to it. So let's create our activity indicator. Let activity indicator equal UI activity indicator view, and then you initialize it with a style, and we're going to do .large. We want a big one. And then now we need to add the indicator view to the container view. So container view dot add subview equal, we want to add activity indicator. And then we need to set the activity indicator auto resizing mask to false. So activity indicator dot translates. Yep, equals. People in the comments have been saying to call it TAMIC. I guess Paul Hudson has been doing that. So I'm just going to call that TAMIC from now on. But I just start typing TRA and I get the autocomplete. But anyway, such a mouthful. And now we set the constraints on the activity indicator. And because we have a style of large, that kind of gives it its size. So we just need to center it. We're going to center it horizontally and vertically. So here we only need 2 constraints. So ns layout constraint dot activate. And again, normally I said the rule of thumb is to pass in 4, but this is one of those exceptions where you don't have to. So activity indicator dot center y anchor dot constraint is equal to right there view dot center y comma activity indicator dot center x dot constraint equal to view dot center X. So now we just basically centered that. And then now when we put this on, we want to call activity indicator dot start animating. So it animates right away. And then let's clean this up and let's test it. So let's walk through this real quick. So we initialize our container view as a UI view and fill it up, with view.bounds, add the subview to the view, do a little bit of customization here, setting the background. We animate it going from 0 opacity to 0.8 opacity to give that subtle little animation that we'll see here in a bit. Create our activity indicator, add the activity indicator to the container view, set the TAMIC, whatever, set some constraints real quick, and then start animating. So if we go to our follower list VC, and then here, like I said, so when we want to call this, like as soon as we call this function get followers, we want to show the loading screen. So now because it's a extension of view controller, all my view controllers have this function. So I just got to type show loading view. So what happens, right? We call get followers, show loading view starts. and then Network Manager will fire off, right? It's going to go do the network call. And then once the network call is done, now we go into this completion block that all this happens in. So we're going to call here, we're going to call dismiss. Well, actually, let's talk about this too. I always do hashtag warning call dismiss. So if you're like me, like I hate seeing warnings in my project. So I like to use this hashtag warning instead of to-dos in order to like let me know like, hey, come back and fix this. So right here is we're going to call like dismiss loading view, right? So you got the process, right? Show it, make the network call. When the network call is done, dismiss it. So let's actually just show it to make sure we got this working. All right, SALEN 0400. Okay, get followers. There's our loading screen. You see how it's see the opacity, and it's not going away, but it's working, right? The reason it's not going away is because we didn't call dismiss yet. So now we have this permanent loading screen up. I can't scroll, but you can see how that opacity just kind of like looks like it fades out the background, without completely, whiting it out so you don't see anything. See our animation spinner, and I don't know if you caught that animation come in. Real simple tip here. Did you know let's run it again. Did you know in the simulator you can slow down your animations? So watch, let's type this in, SALEN 0400, and then let's go to, I believe it's in hardware. Nope, it's in debug, slow animations, right? So now animations are slow. So when you hit get followers, look at this slow-mo. You didn't see that come in because it was already animated. You'll see it when we get to the next 100 followers once we implement our dismiss. But anyway, that was a little tip. Make sure you go back and turn it off though, because it gets annoying if you forget to do that. So you can do slow motion animation. So if you want to debug exactly how an animation is working, flip that on your simulator, you're good to go. So let's work on this dismiss function, right? Let's get rid of that. We got it working. Back to the UI view controller extension. And the dismiss function is quite simple actually. So func dismiss loading view. And we want to do container view dot remove from super view. So remember how we had to add the sub view to the view? Now we're removing that, and then we're going to set container view to nil. Container view equals nil. That way nothing is out there. Now you notice we're always going to have to call dismiss loading view from a background thread. Like I said, remember the cadence that happens, right? We show the loading view, we make our network call. Once the network call is done and we're in this closure, then we dismiss the loading view. So, we're always going to be dismissing the loading view from a background thread in the closure. So back to our UI view extension, controller extension, we want to do dispatch queue.main. We want to put it on the main thread basically, .async. Okay, cool. Now we're on the main thread. Cut, paste. So now back to the follower list VC. Instead of this warning, now we can call dismiss loading view. Oh, we need to call self here. So self.dismiss loading view. Do Command B, get rid of these warnings here. Build failed. Why did it fail? Nope. Oh, crap. Okay. So let's dismiss the loading view after we do guard let self equals self. So now when we run it, our loading view should dismiss. And because I'm on a pretty fast connection, it should just like dismiss real quick. If you even see it on the initial load. Okay, you see it for a little bit. Now watch when we go to the, I'm going to actually slow down animations. So debug slow animation, scroll down, and then, well, slowing the animation didn't work quite well because the network call happened so fast. But let me actually turn that off so you can see it in real action. Okay, so we're not slowing animations. See our loading screen pop on for a second and then go away. So that was on, like I said, a very fast connection. Now let's talk about a slow connection and what you can do. So if you have your, let's stop this here. If you have your device plugged in, now you have to be on your device to do this. Let me unlock here. So if you go to Window, Devices and Simulators, you can see I have my iPhone X plugged in. You can see it. There it is. If you want to see my information, whatever. But you see Device Conditions, right? So if you go to Conditions, and network link. Now there was this network link conditioner that you could hook up to do this on your simulator. That was, I don't know, I always found that to be a pain. This is built right into Xcode now in Xcode 11. So you can see the network link, the profile is like 100% packet loss. You can do very poor edge network. You can test bad network connections if you're on a good one like I am. So I'm gonna do very poor network connection, right? So if I hit start, you're gonna see like a little icon in the upper left of your phone here that I'll put an arrow to. That means like developer stuff is happening, right? So basically my phone right now has really bad network connection. So I'm gonna run GitHub followers here. And again, you see in the upper left, I got that gray icon indicating that, hey, something's messed up. So I'm gonna type in SALEN 0400, hit go. You see my loading spinner is up, and see it's taking forever, right? Because I'm on a bad network, and I don't know. I hope it's working. How bad is the network? Okay, there we go. We're coming in. Now you're going to start seeing the icons popping in, hopefully. I can't remember which build I had here. Yeah, there we go. So you see how long it's taking the icons to pop in. And this is because we're on a horrible network connection. Look, I think it says 1 megabyte down. So this is like really bad with a 10% like packet loss. So you can see these slowly populating. So this is an example of if you want to test your projects in poor network connections. You can do that with, again, various different types of poor network connections. So I definitely recommend testing your apps in this. I wanted to showcase this. Make sure you hit stop. See this stop button right here? Because if you forget to do that, right, you're stuck on your phone with this gray thing. But I'm pretty sure you can also just tap the gray and said, network link condition active, very poor network is active, stop running this condition. Yeah, stop. So there's a way to stop it from your phone or an Xcode, but don't forget to do that. But anyway, that's our loading screen for right now. Like I said, we're going to refactor it in a future video, but we got it up and running. It's working. In the next video, we're going to talk about the empty states, right? Because what if you go to a user that has no followers? Right now, we're just showing a blank screen. We're not showing anything. So we're going to fix that in the next video.